So it's that time of year again, picking up, $10 junipers, $11 junipers. This is a sea green juniper. And, what's amazing about these, I really think this is the way to go for a beginner when you're first doing bonsai. And it gives you tons of time to practice. People talk about how do you practice with bonsai. You get a really nice tree and you don't want to do anything to it, and you could make mistakes. And when you're wiring, you're being rough or you're clipping stuff. And a tree like this, where you just have so many decisions to make, and you can really start to refine your aesthetic and refine your wiring. You also get to, like this one. What's amazing about this one is I actually think they had it for 2 years in the container, so it's almost like it got an extra grow year. They've chopped a few sections, and I think the end of the last year they did it. It's surprising they didn't actually just put it in a little bit bigger pot and up the price and give it a little more, make it cost more as a bigger one. But they actually chopped it, so I mean it's good in some ways, but it means the roots are right in there, and I'm gonna have to. Normally I wouldn't. I mean, junipers are pretty strong this way, especially since so much of the strength is in the foliage. You wouldn't really want to retransplant it and prune, and I'm going to give this a massive prune. I will clean it out and maybe get some initial wire on, and then I'll give you a show of how I'm going to decide which of the sort of structural branches I'm going to take. Just sort of take you through that process. When I was starting, that was the thing that I got the most out of, was just seeing how people are making those decisions. And for me to try to explain it and to walk through it, it'll help me understand more. So I'm top to bottom. Now I've started to clean it out. And there's some, I want to take you through my decision-making process. So, this is a really nice curve. Now, right away after cleaning it out a little bit, there's some lower branches that for surely I'm going to take off. So I'm just going to take them all off, all the lower ones that I know I'm not going to use. This one's possible. We're gonna turn it into a gin. Unlikely. So what I'm really doing here is I'm getting the lower part of making it not look like a shrub as much. So all these lower branches. Now they say about 1/3 of the tree up is kind of the rule or the standard. But of course you can decide based on the branches. Now, a lot of it is just, like, you can see this back one here, it's so thin compared to the trunk, there's just no way I'm going to keep that one. So that one can go off. You can see it's starting to kind of clear up in here a little bit. Just going to gin this. Same with this branch here. Now this branch I'm really not going to use. It's such a nice big one, but I'm just not going to use it. So it too can get ginned up. Okay. This also way too low. It's going to come off. I'm not going to gin that. I mean, often if you're not sure of your title design, you won't just take these off. You might just leave them as gins like I am, to see what I'm going to do. Now, let's see if we can get closer here. So you can see some of the movement here. Let's see if I can get some better lighting. There we go. Okay. So you can see the movement in the trunk is quite good. And it actually moves up. I really like this line here that comes down. It is very, what do you call that, S, and repetitive in that way, which can take away from some of the character of the tree. Now, when you look at the base of this one, I am going to pull it out of here and do a little bit more, but you can see the fattest zone is probably right there. It actually flattens out quite a bit. But I don't, it's not horrible. It looks pretty straight there. It almost tapers a little too much. Now that's a strange thing to say, but it just looks a little off. One of the things with this front here, which is really the front that I'm kind of looking at, is that you have this pigeon breast, which is where the tree sort of, you know, it extends its chest forward, and then it's kind of a bit of an eyesore. So what I'm actually thinking is I'm going to pot it like this. So I'm going to angle it. So instead of being here, I'm going to angle it right about here. You know, if I choose this to be my first branch, the movement's going to be to the right, and the first branch is going to go to the left, which is not always the best because it kind of pulls the directions of the movement. It is possible that I may decide to use one of these as my, you know, first. Well, I won't. It would have to be one of these. It's possible to bring this one around, which is actually maybe what I will do. Now you do start to get a little bit of this kind of, I almost want to gin this entire section, pull this branch down and around. It will look like it's coming off the back a bit. You won't see. I wonder if I can get a teeny bit of that in there. Actually, yeah, I think I might just do that. I lose a teeny bit of movement in the trunk, but I really want that first branch. It's still pretty low. I wonder if I could take that off and that off. Yeah, you know, I think that's probably what I'm going to do. So this and that are going to be gins. Let's just see here. This would be my first branch coming down. Chop it off of there. That'd be my first branch. This might be my second branch. This would just come off. It'd have to be a branch, another branch coming up. Maybe in there. And then the apex coming off. If I have it as my first branch, it's pretty darn low for first branch, and it's going to be so heavy it's going to pull you off. Yeah, so this is actually going to be a gin. This whole thing's coming off. You know, it's one of the things with these smaller trees. You know, you get to practice your decision making, and you know, you don't want to. You know, I have a bunch of these, so I don't want to get too stuck on them. And if I make a mistake, then I can learn from my mistake. And that's the beauty of it. You know, they talk about practice bonsai, and you know, do we practice in this art? You know, do we have sketch pads and things like that where you can kind of practice? So much of it is practicing. You can draw. I have drawn a bunch of horrible drawer, but I have gotten a little better, and you start to kind of get an aesthetic. You know, you start to see things that you do and don't like. And it's a good way to practice, but you really need to practice the sort of the craft of it. Working on a tree is just so different than drawing. I'm just gonna cut the bark there just a bit, so I don't rip through into the main part of the trunk. Now, you know, I might at some point actually put a little deadwood spiral, you know, down coming in here, but for now we're just gonna leave that. Okay, let's see if that comes around. So I'm thinking like that. I am gonna stick it up on a, I really want to get rid of that pigeon breast, and I do like the spiral that happens. And I feel like I get a little bit more movement if I have it straight up like this. You know, if I tilt it, I feel like I get a little bit more movement out of the entire tree, which is what I want here. Now you can see there's got a lot of. So now I'm kind of, you know, there's a lot of empty space on the left side here. So I'm gonna try to kind of. Yeah, I'm gonna probably pull this back, but you want to trim out all of this stuff in here that for surely won't be part of the design. Actually, it's like that. That's how I want it. Yeah. So you can see it really pigeon breasts here. So it has this sort of an effect in the trunk. If I turn it here, I lose that. It's off to the side now, and I'm still getting decent movement. So right there is actually where it's gonna be. An apex is gonna be right up here. So See, like there's the bar branch you might want to be getting rid of. Is this and this, because it'll split the eye. You know, your eye will come up and it'll stop. So I want to avoid that. This one does come up a little more. So yeah, I think that back one is going to go. Well, my camera died there, so I was picking through. I didn't do much. I just kind of ginned this a little bit more. But, you know, gave me a chance to actually think about my design, which is kind of crucial. You need to take these little breaks. Now I can actually see the sort of structure of the tree. You know, and so I am going to clean it up a little bit more. So there's all these little branches that you just, you know, out of the crotches, and these aren't going to become stems or stalks. I'm not going to pull these back to this, and this will help me when I wire. So my next process will be to wire this up. So, and I don't want to rip. I mean, some of them I don't mind kind of ripping out. I do like cutting. Just find it a little more, just a little bit more. You have a little more control over it, and you're not ripping into the, especially when you get to the finer, you know, off the main trunk. Sometimes it'll just come right out, but there we go. So I am gonna want to clear out up. I'm not sure. Can you see that decently? You see this movement in here? I do kind of like that. I do want to kind of highlight it, and those things are right in the way. Now my apex is gonna kind of come, thinking right about here. So all these are going to kind of come down and in there. So I may, I'll just have to see. This back branch, I've decided I'm going to keep it because I'm going to wrap it around. You can see it's already kind of in there, but I'm going to wrap it around, probably come in and give it a little depth here, and try not to get these crossed. So I might have it up like that, there, and that's going to come down. So this is going to be chopped way back for sure. I'll leave myself quite a bit of room, but for now I'm just gonna. So I've been thinking a lot about, so I've got it, I have it wired up, and I've been thinking a lot about, you probably won't be able to see it from there, but a lot about the angle of the container and which container to use. So I've actually decided on a slab, and I'm gonna have it pushing out to that side there. So let me just look at the, yeah, so I'm gonna have it pushing out there, and when you look at the angle of the tree, let's see if I can get this up. So you look at this movement, you know, I had originally, if I turn it, this is kind of where I was thinking, and then if I turn it this way just a little bit, it actually straightens this out, and I lose the movement of that. And if, you know, if I actually turn it this way, I get more movement out of this section, more movement out of it. One of the problems is that it's very flat. The movement is very two-dimensional. It's not very three-dimensional. So what I've actually decided to do is to, let's see if I can get that on there, is to put it in this container and tilt it over quite a bit, and without losing too much. You know, if I get too much there, and then I want to use the foliage to sort of make a triangle. So here we are. It's in the container. I've got the moss to put on top, and again, you put some sphagnum moss at the bottom, and then layered up all the soil underneath. Flattened out the root ball quite a bit, so pulled it under here a bit and over there. There isn't that much extra dirt. It was really root bound. I ended up kind of cutting off the bottom quarter, let's say, of the roots. It was extremely root bound. So you know, I didn't want to give the. I can show you actually what I cut off. It was this. So like I literally just cut it off. I mean, it was so dense. I tried to pick that apart, but it's just pure roots. So I wanted to open it up a bunch. I think it'll be okay. So what I wanted to do now is just sort of work on the design a bit, and I'm going to show you. I got an idea for down below. Let's see, is this gonna, let's see, maybe I'll move it over a bit. I want to kind of get it close so that you can see what I'm doing. But I also want to have it so I can see what I'm doing. So I've gotten everything all wired up. And now, you know, they say to start with the lower branch. I think I am going to use that for back. So let's just start setting these. See, I'm going to want quite a lot of movement here. Now, you know, I had originally thought that these would be hanging down. But now I'm thinking, you know, they can hang down a certain amount. But really, I just want some movement in there. Come forward. Now this one's, I want to really pull this down. Oh, or do I? Don't really want to split there. Let's see. I could cover that. That could make a nice pad there. I'm gonna trim. So I've been thinking about this design quite a bit, and you know, I kind of want it windswept over this way a bit. So I'm gonna see if I can kind of try to create that effect. Now this branch, all the branches are turned this way, so I'm actually gonna twist it a little bit more. I'm gonna have to add some more wire on these to kind of turn them over just a bit. Have it coming out. So I'm going to work in this section here. What I want to do is I've really working with the moss now, and what I want to do is create a little sort of stream bed that comes through here. You know, and part of it was I didn't want to make it too low. It would look like a valley too much, and I didn't want to. I kind of want it like it's coming down, but if I had it up here, it would just look like it started from nowhere. So I kind of have it dripping off, and hoping it will kind of come down. So I'm just going to add some more moss here. So what I've come up with here is a little stream, you know, a little stream that kind of comes through, and I have a rock back here and a rock there and a rock there and a rock there. I wasn't totally sure where to place the rocks. And I wish it was a little brighter for you. Been having to do this in little segments. So let me talk you through a little bit of it. As you saw earlier, I kind of wanted this windswept sort of feel. This is the actual angle. Now it actually comes forward a bit. It might be hard to see, but some of the branches kind of tilt forward and some of them kind of go to the right. This, I could do a little more. You know, there's a few little tweaks here and there that I could do. I would have wanted to take off more. You can see it's pretty clumped back there, and there's actually a lot of branches that hang down. You know, little bits that hang down. But I didn't want to take too much of the tree. I'm still getting used to cutting the tree, and I know junipers, you know, a lot of the strength is in the foliage, so I didn't want to cut too much. But I did, so, you know, and it'll grow out a lot. So this is just going to grow out a lot. So I'll have lots of room to pull back. But you can see, like, this pad here, let's see if we can get that better. You know, it's really nice and flat. Which is nice. It's a nice flat pad. Same here, it kind of gets really nice and flat, but some of these other ones not so flat. And some of them here, like here you see there's a little gap in the foliage, and you know that will fill out. I did have a few pieces that I didn't want the eye to split right here, so I pulled that up as much as I could. Another one here, I did kind of pull that up and then string it down so it doesn't, you don't see those sort of, that split. Although you do get it a little bit, depending on the angle. When you're a little lower, I've kind of hit it a bit by pulling this up. And you know, at some point I may kind of fill that in. I used a lot of the deadwood. As you can see, it's all kind of flowing back and up, and all the branches, everything sort of has the same movement of the trunk. So it's not, there's not big, huge spirals, and that kind of keeps consistency of the design. And I'm trying to get this sort of windswept look. And then of course, you know, I'm really loving this little creek. You know, with the different kinds of moss, it's so cool. You know, it's got all this little red hair coming up, and then these little funky guys are just awesome looking. And I'm really liking this sort of, it's almost like sand rock. I actually smashed it, and so it has this sort of like layered feel to it, which is really, really nice. I've tried to kind of chunk the moss in small sections up here, so when I'm watering it actually gets through to the roots. But down below I've used bigger pieces to kind of hold the dirt into the you know, on the container, because I have no muck or anything holding it up. It's just dirt and then moss, so I'm hoping that will work. I have seen people sort of wire the moss in. It's sticking pretty good, at least for now. Here's the back side of the tree. You can see there's one kind of funky branch coming up, and this is me just moving it around. This one may come off at the end. Quite a few actually may end up coming off. But for now, like I said, I want to keep enough of it alive, and I'm sort of liking just a little bit more of a natural look, and especially while I'm building the design, I really want my trees to live and do well. And I'm not sure how this will be with a juniper, because this is going to keep it pretty darn moist, so I'm going to want to get it in some really hot sun so that it can dry out through and under there. But I did put a lot of, you know, aerated soil, a lot of pumice and perlite and a little diatomaceous earth in there, so it you know, it should drain really well and keep it fairly moist. But yeah, overall I'm just loving this, and you can see my design process started one way and then moved into something entirely different. Let's see if I can get some different kind of lighting for you. You know, I entirely changed the design concept halfway through, and I love that sort of part of the design. I don't like to pick a design and then stick with it. I like the tree to kind of guide me, and then I kind of get inspired as I move. You know, one of the things that I can look at faults, of course. One of the things that you notice is that this is the zags are all and the zigs are all on the same dimension. There's not back and forth, up and down and around. It's all kind of coming up like this, which is okay. You know, I'm okay with it. Like I said, quite a few branches may come. This top is kind of strange at this point. I did want to make a sort of apex, but then I thought, oh, maybe I could have, you know, pulled these down more and had it not come up as much, and it would have given it even more. Like, you can imagine if that was all off and there was maybe a small little apex there, you know, pushing out, or even that was the apex, this one here, if I cover it there, it would give this even stronger windswept and less of an upward movement. But like I said, I'm just really happy with it. I love, you know, this is just a slab. I think it's a great idea, super easy to make with cement. So I highly recommend it, because it's so easy. You just get some cement and pour it on the ground. And you can even make little lips or not. This one didn't. It would have been nicer to have this quite a bit thicker, like bigger. So there could have been a little edge that would have sort of almost framed the whole piece, where right now it's just a ball of moss and another bang. But yeah, and the rocks, you know, like rock placement, I'm never quite sure. You know, I like the idea of using odd numbers. And I almost think of it like placing trees in a forest planting, but this time I've tried different rocks. Put 5, I put 4, I put 3, I just put 1. And one of the things that I wanted to have happen was, you know, for you know, you see the gestalt of the tree, you see the whole tree, and that's an idea I got from Robert Stevens' Black Scissors. And you know, your initial eye sees the whole tree, and it has certain signals that will signify the whole. And then hopefully your mind gets drawn into certain parts. And this is what I've been really trying to work on, is when you see a piece, you know, you see the piece, you see, oh wow, windswept, and then your eye gets brought into certain pieces. Now what will happen is you know, like there'll be empty spaces. So your eye will often go right to that empty space, which can be great, except for if it's just an empty space in the center like that. It will also, so you want to try to avoid these distinct features that will sort of capture the eye, and it will just dominate the entire sense of the whole picture, and your mind won't be able to flow through and around the whole piece in itself. And I'm sure artists study this a lot, and it's much more, I mean, there you get a better sense of the gap being missing, and in that angle you can start to see the kind of flow of the trunk. So the idea is that you see the whole tree, you kind of get brought into this hollow dark area. Now of course the light's adding to that effect, but that's the idea, is you get drawn into this sort of dark area and spend some time in this lower area. And this is why I put this rock over here, to kind of draw the eye over here, and these little light features will also kind of pull, you know, become interest piece, and you'll linger around the creek a little bit, almost imagine yourself there. And as you kind of come up the tree, you know, hopefully these deadwoods start to come out, and as they get white, there'll be a little bit more contrast there. So yeah, and overall, I think, you know, when you're doing a windswept, and I'm trying to learn this, but I had to kind of follow the movement of the trunk, because you know, if I had the branches straight or really swept a lot, it would contrast the trunk. So I look at the trunk for the movement, and then the branches follow that, and I have to sort of, you know, be guided by the tree a little bit more than say what I want. If I want a really gnarly wind and some crazy movement everywhere all in here, and make it look like some really intense storms would come through, you know, you'd want more movement in the trunk to work with that. Otherwise you'd get a bit of a contrast.